Hey guys, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in and watching, coming back, all that stuff. I appreciate it. Hope you're having an awesome day. And in this video, I'm going to be walking through a workflow in Luminar 3. So let me show you the photo. Here's the photo. Now this was just a quick snap I took wandering one evening in Berlin. I have a tiny little pocket camera that I carry around when I'm out with a family or to dinner or something and I'm not really shooting, just in case something catches my eye and I'll snap it, right? So that's what I did here. I really loved the kind of the grunginess of the scene. I love the little motorcycle. It was nearly perfectly placed between those windows. It's kind of a vintage looking bike, and so I thought that was kind of cool. And I love the graffiti because I love that stuff. And of course the light coming through the windows I thought was pretty neat as well. So, you know, the thing is I take a lot of these kind of snaps, and I'll call them snaps. They're not really planned photographs. I'm not really like working the composition or the scene. I'm literally just kind of saying, ooh, that's cool, and click. And I do that a lot, but I don't get rid of these photos, even though they're kind of what you would call maybe a throwaway photo, right? So I don't throw them away. I keep them because you never know what's going to happen. Your taste may change. Ideally, your skills get better over time, and you might come back and take a crack at it. Maybe new software comes out that gives you an idea for, for something you can do to it, that sort of thing. So I generally keep them all. Plus, it's just memories, and it's kind of neat. I remember this, even though it's been a couple of years. So anyway, that's the base photo. So I went into Luminar 3 the other day, and I was messing around, and I was like, I'm going to take a crack at that photo and to see what I can come up with, because, like I said, I kind of like the idea. So I turned it into that, and that's vastly different. There's some obvious filters I use that you can tell, but the big thing here is that I went from this perspective, which looks like I'm a giant looking down on this tiny bike, and I'm not a giant. I'm not even close to being even tall. But I've got a, I shot it wrong. I guess the best way to say it. I should have squatted down and got more on level with it. It's kind of like taking photos of kids, right? If you don't ever squat down and get to their height, you're always, all the photos are gonna be like you're looking down on them, and they don't look that great, right? So same kind of thing. This was a smaller bike, and I should have squatted down and got more on a level with it, but I was able to sort of fix that in Luminar, as you can see. So I'm going to reset all these filters, and I'll walk you through how I did that, as well as the editing steps that I took. Okay, so here we are in the raw develop filter. I did a couple of minor things: contrast of 17, clarity of 50. So just really basic stuff. Just to get started, the bigger thing that I needed to do was go fix all the distortion problems and the perspective and correct all that. So the lens and transform tabs can be your best friend in this sort of scenario. I've got previous videos I've done, I'll put up here, that cover those in a bit of depth. I'll run through this kind of quick. Lens distortion is basically overcoming, see how that top line here what is that called, a lintel? I don't know what it's called, but that little shelf of stone, it's totally bowed out. So lens distortion, I went all the way to 100. And hey, guess what? It's straight. I love that. So it fixes that bowing that occurs from there. It looks like I shot this with a really wide angle lens, and boom, now it's a lot straighter. So that looks good. However, I'm still looking down on the photo, and this is where the perspective correction comes in. And you do that in the transform tool, which admittedly I don't use a ton, but golly, when I use it like on a photo like this, it makes all the difference in the world. So what did I do? The first thing was vertical. So I gotta look at my notes here because I reset all these. So I went to 14. So if you look at this, all I'm doing is I'm shifting this up and down in terms of how it's being tilted, right? So I went to 14 here, which is there. And so you might be thinking, yeah, but Jim, if you look at it, you got all this funny gray empty space at the top. Don't worry, we're gonna take care of that. Horizontal, I didn't do anything, although let me show you what that does. It does the same thing as vertical, except along the other axis, right? So that's shifting that perspective. I'm going to leave that alone. Rotate is the same as the rotation in the crop tool, so it allows you to basically straighten or tilt the image. Aspect, I went -9. So what this does, it allows you to kind of squish it together if you go to the right, or extend the photo out if you go to the left. I went -9, so I'll just put it there. So I've kind of stretched it out just a little bit. And then scale comes in. Scale basically allows you to sort of move the photo closer to you, like zoom in basically, or zoom out. So here's kind of a zoom out, right? You can see how it's bowing in the edges, and here it is kind of zoomed in. So I went all the way to 62, yeah. So you can see I'm basically more so filling the frame with the photo. Now, if you look at it, you're thinking, yeah, but Jim, it's not centered. You still get that mess on the top. The bike's, you're cutting off the bottom of the bike like the kickstand. I am, but we're going to fix that too. And that's where X and Y offset comes in. X offset allows you to move it along the X axis. So if you go like that, you can scoot it over that way. And I'm going to go this way to center it. So I'm going to go, I think I went -20. Yeah, I had to check my notes there. -20. Now it's pretty centered where the bike's kind of in the middle. There's a fairly equal amount of stone on either side of those windows. And now there's the Y offset, which is just the opposite of the X offset. Instead of moving it left to right, it moves it up and down. So if I go like that to the left, I'm moving down, and if I go to the right, I'm moving up. So in this case, I went to 37, and there we go. Now, I've got a photo that went from that kind of perspective, completely jacked up and basically poorly shot, to that. And I think that looks a lot better. In fact, I think it looks great. I'm a little bit biased because it's my photo, and I'm kind of happy about the job that I did saving it, if you will. But there we go. Now, the rest of this is kind of, I don't want to call it basic editing, but, it's kind of basic editing. So next I went to the tone filter, which is one of my favorites, added some contrast and smart tone. So let me show you that before and after. And you'll notice that when you do add contrast, it'll bump up the intensity of the colors, and in particular that little graffiti face or whatever that is, it kind of got more blue. It's kind of got a blue tint already, but now it's got a lot more blue tint, as does the rest of the scene. And I don't really want the scene to be blue. As you saw my final result, I went for more of a warm, kind of moody look. And so next I add brilliance and warmth. And I didn't do any vividness. I just bumped the warmth up 51, so about halfway. I mean, pretty significantly. But it's not overly yellow or orange or warm, right? There it's pretty blue. Now it's basically tamer. It's more neutral, I guess. The one nice thing is that the light in the background has gotten a little bit warmer as well, which I like. I want that to be kind of warm. And in order to get that kind of warm, I use split toning. So again, I've done videos about split toning. I'll put up there, but basically split toning allows you to adjust either the highlights or the shadows and pick a color to adjust them to. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on and show you what I did. And boom, it's a lot warmer, right? So I added, so in the highlights, I went to a hue of 42, which you can see in this little box. That represents the color that I'm choosing, or the hue that I'm choosing along that hue slider. And the saturation, I went to 95. I really moved it high, but it gave a lot of warmth to the highlights. So there's the before and the after. Obviously, the highlights also extend into the stonework, but primarily they're really coming out of those windows. And then I did a little bit here, 24 on kind of the hue for the shadows, and that is just to keep a little bit of the blue there, right? There's that, and there's that. So I liked where I was at this point, but I was like, I need to make it pop a little bit. And so one thing I noticed was one of the lights coming through this window, it's bleeding out there a little bit, and of course that gave me the idea to stick the sunrays filter on the photo. And so that's what I did. Now, when it first came out, everybody used sunrays on every photo, whether it was necessary or not, including me. So I'm not judging. This is not Jim picking on anybody. But then, there seemed to be a bit of a backlash. People are like, oh my God, cut it out. It's just so fake. Hey, you know what? It's your art. Do whatever you want. If it makes you happy, you should do that. And in this case, sunrays made me happy because it allowed me to create a light source there out of that window, which was kind of already there. As you can see, it's bleeding out a little bit, but clearly it wasn't anywhere near as intense as I made it. So I placed the sun center. You just click on that button, you drag this little thing around, right? And you can put it anywhere you want. And I stuck it right there. And then I made some adjustments here. And this is not a tutorial about the sunrays filter, but mostly I recommend you experiment. And by the way, I should have said that back up here when I was on transform. It's probably pretty obvious, but because of all these changes that I made, I didn't just say, well, I need to do vertical, aspect, scale, X and Y, and then just do them and get done. I probably spent 10 or 15 minutes experimenting with that, moving things around till I got the photo looking the way I wanted. So that probably, hopefully goes without saying, but I said it just to be sure. Same with sunrays, right? So I experiment a little bit, the length and the warmth and the penetration, randomization, all that kind of stuff, but I kind of liked it. Hey, you know, I'm totally making this thing up at this point, so I was like, what the hell, might as well do it. And then the last piece was just a vignette, and that's really just to center the attention. I also like, if you look, I always do the inner light. No, I actually probably do inner light pretty much every time I use a vignette, but especially, you know, here around this light source, I don't know, it makes it pop a little bit more. I like that the light is blown out. I'm not generally a fan of like a blown out highlight, but in situations like this, blow it out, because, you know, I'm creating that like there's a force or some kind of, you know, super intense thing happening from the windows and it's shining through. In this case, it's a light source, but blowing it out, it just makes it look like it's some otherworldly sort of energy or light source. I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little too esoteric here, but I liked the vignette and how it added, and of course the inner brightness, bringing up that center of the scene. And at this point, I've created a nice contrast, nice warm light on these cobblestones. And in fact, you know, you might even could go back up here. Let me just try this. I was at 17. You know, you could do a little bit more contrast if you wanted, and a little bit more smart tone to lift a little bit of those shadows. But, you know, I'm kind of done. I'm just experimenting at this point. So that's what I would do. That's how I did this one. And in fact, I'm noticing a little bit of purple there. You can come over here and take some of that down. And there you go. Just remove that tint, which I just noticed there kind of in the wall. So here we go. The before, throwaway shot, perspective's all wrong, completely shot poorly, bad Jim, just walking down the street in a hurry. But hey, I didn't throw it away. I wanted to keep it. And now I got a shot that I like. You know, it's not amazing, but it's way better than it was. And it was fun and artistically challenging to create something out of nothing. And that's what I did here. So that's it for this video, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you're not using the lens correction is important, but transform can be really transformative. So check those out. And that's it for today, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Thanks again. Take care. See you soon, and adios.